do. So I've just always been a writer. I guess I've always been a reader, I should say. I fell in love with books at a very young age, and I wanted to write stories. Write poetry is something I do just as a hobby. And I published my first children's book in 2018. I had the idea for a very long time. And I just never like sat down and wrote it. I think I was a little afraid to like, what would people think, and all the self-doubt and imposter syndrome things that you have. And and I just was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. And I queried it out to several publishers and got rejected by each and every one. Then I just said, you know what? Let me figure out how to self-publish this, because I can do this. So I'm a self-taught self-publisher, and since then I just haven't looked back.
Did you ever imagine that you would be doing not just the writing, but also the marketing and all the business side of it? Was that kind of a surprise for you?
Yes, that is very time consuming. And I know that because I work in marketing professionally. But it's a whole other game when you actually are trying to be the marketer for your own book and product. It's hard to be very objective in that way, but and time consuming. It takes a lot of time. So
yes, and I know you're very active on social media. If you're not following her on Instagram yet, you should be, because you do really great reels. I mean, you're great at it, but I know that does take a lot of time.
It does. I try to batch create, and so I will film a bunch of reels. At first, I tried to do the whole outfit change and different shirts, and I was like, I just gotta forget that. Just film them and save them in my drafts, and then as they come up. And I also find a really good tip that I do is I use TikToks. I do TikToks pretty much every day. And I bring them over to Reels. So things start trending on TikTok earlier than they do on Instagram. So trending sounds, I'll go back once I see a sound starts trending on Instagram and pull in my TikTok from TikTok onto IG.
Oh, that's a good tip. How much of a delay is there usually?
I would say like a week or two.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I found a couple. I
want to go
one
back
today that was trending today on Instagram that was on TikTok several weeks ago. So
wow, I didn't realize there was that much of a difference between them. Yeah. I want to go back to what you were talking when you started writing books, because I've seen that you wrote that you kind of went, even though you had always been a reader and always been interested in writing professionally, you went in a different direction. I think you did journalism and were in the corporate world, but then you felt this soul pull to go into writing. Can you tell us about that? And then how did you find the courage, like you just mentioned, all of those kind of barriers that we have. How did you find the courage to make that jump?
Absolutely. So I think what I found was that I wasn't feeling 100% fulfilled with my day job. And I just felt like I'm here to do something else, right? And I wasn't unhappy. Like I love what I do as a professional in corporate marketing. I love what I do. But you can enjoy what you do and not still be fulfilled by it, right? And your job doesn't have to be that source of fulfillment. But for me, writing is where I get fulfilled. Like I can write and time just goes, right? And I feel like I'm operating at my highest self when I'm being an author and working on author things and even doing the marketing, like all of it just connects. And I think, I would say the balance is very hard because I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still doing both things, but the pandemic kind of spurred me to take a look at what I was doing and carve out the time where I needed to. Like I stopped commuting crazy hours a day and, rush hour traffic in Atlanta, and started having more time to figure out how do I want to allocate my day. Right. And now I've decided that these are the things that are, these are my mandatories. Like I'm not compromising this time. This is my writing time. I'm always going to use this time to write. The discipline and really putting myself on a schedule. And even if I only write 30 words, I'm going to sit there and have that time dedicated to writing each day.
Oh, I love that. And was that hard once, obviously the pandemic's not over, but in a lot of ways kind of life has gone somewhat back to normal, people are going back to the office, was it hard to kind of still maintain those times? I mean,
Yeah.
like time you carved out for yourself?
Yes, it was a little hard, but what I found is I decided I'm not going back to pre-pandemic life, like the things I had in my schedule, even after work and weekends. And
Right.
it's just not, it wasn't the best, it wasn't the healthiest for me to just be
Right.
on the go like that all the time and to just not be doing the things that were fulfilling me. So now I'm doing what's fulfilling me and still being part of the post-pandemic world, but I now have a new way that I'm approaching my day each day, that's healthier for me and leaves me feeling more fulfilled.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your books for those who may not be familiar with them?
Sure,
How the
absolutely.
inspiration was?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the ones that you put on the flyer first. So Unstoppable Z is what I call my girls empowerment story. It is all about believing in yourself and knowing that you can do anything you put your mind to. My niece was the inspiration for this story. She's very strong-willed and determined. And I always tell people to kind of write what you know who want to be an author, because the stories are all around us, right? Like just observing your community and daily life. Like this story came out of, like, everything in the book is something my niece, I kind of saw her, grapple with and be challenged with and focus on, and things she loves to do. And so that's where that story came from. And it's a classic 32-page rhyming picture book. And I also partnered with an African-American illustrator on it. I wanted it to be written and illustrated by a Black woman. So I did a lot of research to find someone who would bring the character to life in how I envisioned.
Right. That's great. What about some of your other books?
Yeah, so I also have My Day with Grandma, which is also based on a family relationship. So my mother and my nephew have a very special bond. She's been helping take care of him since he was born, and they are two peas in a pod. So I wrote their story, and that's also a rhyming picture book with, a big focus on what I think doesn't get a lot of light in a lot of picture books I've seen about grandparents have been very focused on animals, and there's so many of them. I search my book on Amazon, and everything about grandparents that comes up are bears and rabbits and owls and you name it.
Interesting.
There's very few books with African-American characters that show the bond between grandmother and grandchild. And so I was really happy to put that out there and have that be, part of the selection for people that are looking for books where children can see themselves and what their families look like.
Right. It's beautiful. And I love how they're inspired by your own family. That's great.
Yeah. I just find that, writing what I know is the easiest way to go. And so I've kind of branched out, and I just released a companion, I'll show you it here, companion book to Unstoppable Z, which is an activity journal. So it is over 100 pages. It's got, blank pages as well as lined pages. And it's all kind of in the theme of Unstoppable Z. And there's some affirmations at the beginning about believing in yourself for kids. And so I just want kids to kind of take it and use their imagination, practice writing their name and color and doodle and sketch and make plans and lists and all the things that they can think about how they can also be unstoppable. So I brought that out, and I have just started translating some of my books into Spanish. So Unstoppable Z is now available in Spanish as La Imparable Zeta. And so that's available, and I will be bringing out the journal in Spanish a little later this year too.
So why did you decide that was, especially as someone who's self-publishing, I know you have to be very intense about your choices. Why was that important to you? So
I started getting a lot of requests over on TikTok about, are your books available in other languages? I'm Afro-Latina, and my daughter would love to see a brown character, in language. And so that made me look into the percent of the book market for Spanish language, and how if your book is in Spanish, you're reaching a very wide range of customers and readers around the world outside of the English market. So that's the first language I chose. I did get run requests for German, but I haven't done that yet. I don't know if I will, but Spanish kept coming up. And so I thought, I'm going to actually do this one. And then I'm going to do some others. So My Day with Grandma will come out in Spanish as well, probably next year.
Spanish is a big market, but I haven't seen any studies on this, but I would imagine that there probably is not a huge percentage with Black children in them, even though there are so many Latinx people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I got a lot of feedback from Spanish teachers and folks on Goodreads, how they really enjoyed seeing the character actually have brown skin in Spanish. So,
right.
Yeah.
And we actually had a question from someone watching. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process of self-publishing, kind of what you've...
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. So I will say when I started out, I did a lot of reading, Googled everything. Amazon makes it very easy as a first-time author to self-publish your book through Amazon. But my number one tip is to buy and own your own ISBN numbers, which are the code, the barcode that'll be on the back of your book, and how you track your sales for your book. If you don't do that, then Amazon technically owns your book as the publisher. So it's really important to make sure you own your ISBNs, and they cost about somewhere between $25 and $50 per barcode. But I think it's worth the investment, because that way you can take that and publish your book on any platform, because you're the actual publisher of it. I recommend starting your own LLC. But if you don't want to do that at first, you don't have to. I didn't at first. I did that later on. But that way you're the official publisher. You pick whatever company name that you want, and you can publish your books through Amazon and any other retailer as well. I also use Ingram Book Group, Ingram Spark, to publish. So I think it's good to kind of have your book in multiple platforms. Amazon is great, but with Ingram, you're able to distribute to multiple distribution around the world in ebooks as well. So I know Amazon, it's super easy, and it's a little cheaper to go yourself and have it in multiple platforms.
That is a great tip. I didn't know that about the ISBN numbers.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned your day job. So are you still working a full-time job plus?
I am. Yes, I am still working a full-time job and figuring out the balance. So sometimes when I'm quiet here on Instagram, it's because I'm busy doing day job things. So I'm trying to balance it all, but it's going pretty well so far. And I think just having, supportive colleagues and friends makes it a lot easier, but you can do both. And the other thing I would say about that is don't rush things just because that's when you get into making mistakes, and then you start wasting your own money in self-publishing. So take your time. The beauty of self-publishing is you're on your own timetable. You're not, on a deadline to a publisher. You are literally able to set the date that you can hit for your book release and give yourself enough time to pre-promote. And, once you hit publish and your book is out there, that's when the real work starts with marketing the book. It starts before, but once you hit go, the sales don't just magically come in. You have to actively promote your book.
And I'm sure that your background in corporate marketing has come in really handy with that.
It has. It's definitely, I think, helped me. But it's very time consuming. But it's fun because it's my stuff. But I always try to make sure I'm not in a vacuum, and I'm getting feedback from other authors and writers and moms and parents and teachers, because it's hard to be objective on your own work.
Sure. And I just wanted to shift you, speaking about getting feedback from parents and readers. I know something that you said is really important to you is that you want to uplift Black women and girls. And yes, you can really see that in your books. Can you talk more about that and how do you do that?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you know, what's important to me is that children see themselves in books. And I felt that as a child, I didn't always see myself in stories, in the stories and the fairy tales and the Cinderellas and everything that I grew up on. Nobody looked like me. And so that has an impact on self-esteem, on your sense of belonging, on feeling like you're a part of this world. And I feel like there should be more stories, and I'm doing my part to contribute them, but there should be more stories where kids feel at a very early age that they're represented. Got comments from people about how kids don't see color and it doesn't matter, but if it doesn't matter, like why is this a debate, right? Like, why do you care that I'm publishing children's books with Black main characters?
That's a great answer. Yeah,
like everyone should feel represented. And frankly, even for non-minority groups, like seeing others that are not like yourself in a book, it increases empathy and understanding. And that's so important. So if we could probably solve a lot of problems if more children were exposed at a very early age to diverse stories.
Right. And why specifically women and girls?
Just because I feel like there's so much that women have to deal with in this world, that they have their voices attempted to be silenced by a lot of powers that be, that everything we can do to uplift them and to let them know that their voices matter at an early age is important. I think that, you know, there's a lot we're dealing with as you know, as a gender. And so just having women and always, right? Like, women can vote, women, it's just a lot that we have to deal with as women that I think girls from a young age need to know more than, oh, you grow up and you get married to the prince, and there need to be other stories out there.
And I'm curious, does your niece, does she know that she was the inspiration behind Unstoppable?
She does. I actually have a photo up on my page of her dressed up as Unstoppable Z for literary character day at school. And so she made her mom made her whole outfit of Unstoppable Z, like down to the big yellow Z on her chest, and she was so proud to walk into school with that. And so just imagine that, right? Like, I am the character. I'm the one in the book. Like, every child should be able to feel like they can dress up as themselves and see themselves in literature.
I love that. And well, I want to be mindful of your time, and I know we're coming up on the time that for the interview. So I just want to finish. Can you give us a preview what you're working on? Do you have any books that, like, what's coming out next? I know you're talking about the translations, but are there any other books?
So that I'm working on that. I'm also working on the next Unstoppable Z adventure. So I won't share too much about what that's about, but that is in the works. And I'm also working on a book about my grandfather that is sort of an illustrated poem that's a little internally retrospective. It'll be unique. It'll be for a little bit of an older demographic, but still for children. And so that'll be out sometime next year too.
Will that be a picture book also, or are you thinking?
Yes. It will be a picture. It will be sort of an illustrated poetry, but the poem is long, and so it'll be illustrated with pictures, but skewing a little bit older. So think more like, you know, ages 8 to 11 range.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see those. Thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll have you back on when your other books come out.
Sounds good.